Everyone in the homesteading world told you the same thing. Get a few goats, maybe a cow, build a real dairy setup, and you'll have food independence. They were wrong. I'm going to show you 7 animals that produce more income, take up less space, and require less work than goats ever will. And if you're already raising goats, what you hear in the next 10 minutes might completely change how you're using your land. Every week, this channel breaks down which small farm animals actually build income and which ones just burn your time and money. Stick around for animal number 6. It's the one quietly earning serious farmers $2,000 to $5,000 a month from something most people throw in the trash. Number 1 is quail. And I need you to forget everything you assume about small farm poultry, because quail operate on a completely different timeline than every other bird. Here's the problem most people run into. They want fast returns without a large land investment, but they assume they have to wait 5 to 6 months before a single bird lays a single egg. Goats don't solve that. Chickens barely solve it. Quail completely solve it. Coturnix quail are mature and laying at 6 to 8 weeks old. You go from hatch to income in under 2 months. A breeding group produces up to 300 eggs per year in a space smaller than a dog crate, a setup that fits in your garage, your shed, or a spare corner of your porch. The numbers are serious. Quail eggs sell for $6 to $8 per dozen at farmers markets and specialty grocers. That's double what chicken eggs fetch for the same amount of effort collecting them each morning. In cities where chickens are completely banned, quail are almost always legal, because zoning laws classify them as game birds. Not poultry. That legal gap alone opens this option to millions of people who've been told they can't raise birds at home. A homesteader in Oregon is running 200 Coturnix on less than half an acre and grossing over $40,000 a year. Between egg and meat sales, their biggest challenge isn't production. It's keeping up with customer demand. People are on waiting lists. Start with 50 birds. Total startup cost stays under $140. From there, scale once you've found your buyers. Number 2 is rabbits. If you want meat production on limited land, without the land costs, neighbor complaints, or noise, nothing competes. A single doe, one breeding female, produces over 200 pounds of lean meat per year from a hutch that takes up 12 square feet. 12 square feet! You can run a complete rabbit operation in a garden shed or under a carport. The feed efficiency gap is enormous. Rabbits convert feed to meat at a 4.1 ratio. Beef cattle sit at 7.1. Goats aren't much better. That difference goes directly into your margin. The meat commands premium prices because it checks every box health-conscious consumers care about. Higher protein than chicken, lower fat than beef, naturally lean, no growth hormones when you raise it yourself. Direct-to-consumer rabbit meat sells for $8 to $12 per pound. A homestead in North Carolina runs 40 rabbits on 1 acre and nets $35,000 a year selling meat at markets and hides to crafters. Rabbit manure is the only livestock manure you can apply directly to garden beds without composting first. It won't burn your plants. Experienced gardeners actively seek it out and will pay $1 to $3 per pound. The rabbits are literally fertilizing your garden and generating income at the same time. Startup cost for a breeding trio, 1 buck, 2 does, hutches, feeders, waterers, runs under $300. That's your entry point to a self-sustaining meat system. Number 3 is honeybees. And this is as close to passive income as farming actually gets. One hive occupies 4 square feet, needs 30 minutes of attention per week during active season, and it generates income from 5 different streams simultaneously. No other animal on this list does that. Stream 1 is honey. A single productive hive yields 30 to 60 pounds per season. Raw local honey sells for $10 to $15 per pound at markets. That's $300 to $900 per hive per year from honey alone. With 5 hives, you're at $1,500 to $4,500 before you've touched anything else. Stream 2 is beeswax. Raw beeswax sells for $15 to $20 per pound. Turn it into candles, lip balm, or wood polish, and that same pound retails for $30 to $50 in finished products. Stream 3 is pollination services. Local farmers and gardeners pay $100 to $200 per hive per season to rent your bees. Stream 4 is nucleus colonies. Once you know what you're doing, starter colonies sell for $175 to $250 each. Experienced beekeepers sell multiple per year. That one stream alone can generate thousands. Stream 5 is the hive itself, making everything else on your property more productive. Research consistently shows that properly pollinated gardens produce 30% more vegetables and fruit. Your bees are paying for themselves in food yield before you harvest a single ounce of honey. Start with 2 hives. Equipment runs $500 to $800. Give yourself 1 full year to learn the rhythms before scaling. The biggest mistake beginners make is trying to run 10 hives before they understand what they're managing. 2 hives, 1 year, then expand. Number 4 is ducks. And if someone told you chickens are the best backyard poultry, they've never run the numbers. Duck eggs are larger, richer, and more nutritious than chicken eggs. Bakers specifically seek them out because of the lift and texture they produce. Duck eggs sell for $8 to $12 per dozen at most markets. In some areas, up to $18. That's $1 to $1.50 per egg, compared to $3 to $4 per dozen for chicken eggs. You're earning 50 to 75% more for the exact same daily collection effort. Here's what most people completely miss about ducks. They are elite garden workers. Ducks eat slugs, snails, beetles, and mosquito larvae. Unlike chickens that scratch aggressively and destroy young seedlings, ducks waddle between rows and leave plants untouched. Gardeners report 50 to 70% reductions in slug damage after adding ducks. Asian rice farmers have understood this integration for centuries. Khaki Campbells and Welsh Harlequins lay 250 to 300 eggs per year and keep producing through cold and wet weather. That shuts down chicken flocks entirely. That means year-round income when chicken keepers watch revenue go to zero in winter. A simple 4x6 shelter, a $30 kiddie pool, and basic fencing is all you need to get started. Total setup under $200. Number 5 will make you immediately skeptical until you see what it actually does. Black soldier fly larvae. Stay with me here, because this is the one that connects every other animal in your system together. The world is running short on affordable protein for livestock. Fish farmers, poultry operations, pet food manufacturers, they're all paying more for soy and fish meal every year. Black soldier fly larvae are nature's solution. They convert kitchen scraps, food waste, and manure into premium protein. 42% protein and 35% fat, premium feed material produced from garbage. A farmer in Florida processes 200 pounds of larvae per week using food scraps sourced from local restaurants. Monthly revenue $1,500 to $2,000 from what was headed to the landfill. But here's what makes this extraordinary on a small farm. You don't have to sell the larvae. Feed them to your quail, your ducks, your chickens, your fish. You're converting waste into free, high-quality feed. Feed costs on the rest of your operation drop significantly. And the frass, the organic material larvae leave behind, is one of the most potent natural fertilizers available. Rich in nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Apply it to your garden, and the transformation is visible in weeks. Startup: climate-controlled space, basic containers, a source of organic waste. Cost under $200. Scale as demand grows. Number 6 is the one mentioned at the top of the video: worm farming. Before you click away, the vermiculture industry is worth hundreds of millions of dollars globally. Some of the most successful operations in the country started with a single plastic bin in a garage. Here's why it works. Worms eat your garbage. Kitchen scraps, shredded cardboard, garden waste, material you're already throwing away. And they convert it into 3 products people actually pay serious money for. Product 1 is worm castings. Organic gardeners call it black gold. It sells for $1 to $3 per pound in bulk, $25 to $50 for a 25-pound bag at retail. Cannabis growers, small organic farms, and premium garden centers cannot get enough of it. Supply never meets demand. Product 2 is live worms. Red wigglers sell for $20 to $40 per pound. The recreational fishing industry alone is a $40 billion market in the United States. Night crawlers are in constant demand year-round. Product 3 is worm tea, liquid fertilizer brewed from castings, sold as a premium plant supplement. The startup cost is almost nothing. A plastic bin, shredded newspaper for bedding, 1 pound of red wigglers. Roughly $30 to $40 total. Worms double their population every 60 to 90 days. That initial investment becomes a self-growing inventory. A 10,000 worm operation generates $300 to $800 per month. The serious worm farmers running 100,000 plus worms are pulling $2,000 to $5,000 monthly. And when you combine this with your rabbit operation, your ducks, your quail, their manure feeds the worms. The worms generate castings that fertilize your garden and your aquaponics beds. One system feeds the next. Your costs drop while your income compounds. Number 7 is where things get genuinely space efficient. Aquaponics. Fish and plants working together in your backyard. Fish waste fertilizes the plants. Plants clean the water for the fish. It's a closed loop that produces 2 income streams from one setup. Tilapia are the go-to fish. They tolerate a wide range of water conditions, grow to harvest size in 6 to 9 months, and people love eating them. A 250-gallon backyard system produces 50 to 75 pounds of fish annually at $6 to $8 per pound. But the real money is in the plants, not the fish. Basil, lettuce, fresh herbs grown aquaponically. These crops grow 30 to 50% faster than in soil. Basil sells for $8 to $12 per pound at farmers markets. A well-run system produces hundreds of pounds of premium herbs and greens annually, from a footprint smaller than a garden shed. Most aquaponics farmers find vegetable sales outpace fish sales 2 to 1. A single IBC tote system, those big industrial containers found for $50 to $100 on Marketplace, costs $500 to $100 or $200 to set up and can generate $100 to $300 per month. A multi-tank system pushes you into $300 to $800. And when you add bees pollinating your greenhouse, rabbit manure feeding the worm farm, worm castings going into the grow beds, you've built a machine where every system makes every other system more productive. Now here's the mistake that kills most new farmers who watch videos like this one, trying to start all 7 at once. Don't do it. Pick one, master it completely for 4 to 6 months, build genuine confidence through consistent results. Then add the second. The person raising rabbits successfully for 6 months who adds quail has real transferable knowledge. They understand feeding schedules, health signals, processing, and how to find buyers. They're miles ahead of someone who started 5 species at once and struggles with all of them. Here's your decision framework. Need the fastest possible returns on the smallest budget? Start with quail. Want the highest passive income potential? Start with bees. Want a closed-loop system that cuts costs across everything else you raise? Start with worms or black soldier fly larvae. Want direct meat production for your family without needing a lot of land? Start with rabbits. One choice this season, with whatever space and resources you have right now. If you want more practical systems like this every week, real strategies for real small farms, subscribe to this channel. What's the one animal from today that fits your situation best? Drop it in the comments right now. I read and respond to every single one, and your answer might be exactly what someone else watching needs to take their first step. Coturnix quail housing can be as simple as stacked wire cages taking up less floor space than a bookshelf against one wall. A 3-tier quail rack built from scrap lumber and hardware cloth costs under $100 in materials for a beginner setup. Quail meat also has a market of its own, with dressed birds selling for $5 to $8 each at specialty butchers and restaurants. Since quail reach processing weight in just 6 to 8 weeks, a meat-focused operation can run several cycles per year on the same space. Selling started quail chicks to other backyard producers who don't want to run an incubator adds a 4th income stream. A breeder who builds a reputation for healthy, fast-growing quail lines often sells out of started birds before they're even ready. Rabbit breeding trios can be housed in stacked hutches, tripling production capacity without tripling the footprint required. A doe can be rebred roughly 4 weeks after kindling, keeping a rolling harvest of fryers coming every 8 to 10 weeks. Rabbit pelts, often discarded, sell for $5 to $10 each to crafters and fiber artists who specifically seek out quality rabbit fur. That pelt income alone can add $1,000 or more annually to an operation running 40 to 50 rabbits per year. A rabbit's feed conversion advantage compounds further when garden scraps and foraged greens supplement the purchased pellets. Comfrey grown along a rabbit hutch fence line can replace 30 to 50% of purchased feed once the planting matures. Beehive placement near fruit trees and garden beds maximizes the pollination benefit on top of the direct honey income. A single strong hive can pollinate crops across a 2-mile radius, effectively boosting yields on neighboring properties too. Some beekeepers formalize that neighborhood benefit into paid pollination contracts with nearby market gardeners each spring. Nucleus colony sales peak in early spring when new beekeepers are looking to start, creating a predictable seasonal income window. A beekeeper with 5 hives running at full capacity can realistically clear $8,000 to $12,000 annually across all 5 income streams. Duck eggs also work beautifully in baking applications that chefs specifically request, adding a direct-to-restaurant sales channel. A standing weekly order with even one local bakery can absorb the entire output of a 10-duck flock without any market stall. Muscovy ducks, unlike Khaki Campbell's, are nearly silent and add a meat production option alongside the egg income stream. A duck pond isn't required. A simple kiddie pool, refreshed every few days, handles all the water access ducks actually need. Black soldier fly larvae bins can be built from stacked plastic totes for under $50, making this one of the cheapest systems to start. A ramp inside the larvae bin lets mature larvae self-harvest by crawling out and dropping directly into a collection container. That self-harvesting design means daily labor for this system runs under 5 minutes once the colony is established. Restaurants and grocery stores are often willing to supply food waste for free just to avoid their own disposal costs. That free waste stream is the entire input cost for a larvae operation that can generate real monthly revenue from nothing. Worm bins scale linearly. Doubling bin count roughly doubles both castings output and live worm production simultaneously. A worm farmer who builds a reputation for quality castings often develops standing orders with local nurseries and garden centers. Selling breeding stock to other homesteaders starting their own worm bins creates a second income stream from the same colony. Aquaponic systems built from IBC totes can be stacked vertically to double growing capacity within the same ground footprint. Herb varieties like basil and mint grow so fast in aquaponic systems that harvest cycles can run every 2 to 3 weeks. A single well-managed aquaponic setup can supply a regular farmer's market stall with fresh greens nearly year-round indoors. Combining several of these 7 systems means the waste from one becomes the input for another, cutting costs across the board. Rabbit manure feeding a worm bin, worm castings feeding the aquaponics grow beds, and bee pollination boosting every garden yield. That interconnection is what separates a collection of side hustles from a genuinely compounding small farm income system. Tracking monthly revenue and cost per system on a simple spreadsheet reveals which combination is actually paying off fastest. Most operators find that quail and worms together generate the highest return per hour of labor invested in the first year. Rabbits and bees tend to show the strongest growth in years 2 and 3, as breeding stock and hive strength both compound. None of these 7 systems require specialized education. They require patience, sequence, and a willingness to start with just one. The land was never the limiting factor for any of this. The goat-first assumption that dominates homesteading advice always was 7 animals, 7 income streams, and none of them require the acreage, fencing, or feed bill that goats demand. That's the entire case for rethinking what belongs on a small farm before defaulting to the animal everyone assumes you need. A quail operation running alongside a rabbit hutch shares 0 direct feed connection, which is exactly why they pair well as a first 2-species stack. Independent income streams reduce risk. A slow month for quail eggs doesn't affect rabbit meat sales at all. Choosing 2 unrelated systems to start with spreads risk while still keeping the total learning curve manageable for a beginner. A homesteader running quail and worms simultaneously often finds the worm bin processing quail manure directly, closing a small loop early. That early loop, built almost by accident, becomes the template for connecting every other system added later. Rabbit does bread on a staggered monthly schedule, ensure a fryer batch reaches processing weight every few weeks without a production gap. A simple wall calendar, tracking breeding dates, kindling dates, and weaning dates, prevents the overbreeding that damages doe health. Beekeeping equipment, purchased second-hand from a retiring beekeeper, often costs half of new equipment, with years of useful life remaining. Local beekeeping associations frequently connect new keepers with mentors willing to walk through the first full season hands-on. That mentorship shortcuts months of trial and error that would otherwise come from books and videos alone. Duck breeds selected specifically for cold tolerance extend the egg-laying season well past when chicken production typically stalls. A duck flock integrated into an existing garden reduces slug and snail damage enough that pesticide costs drop to zero. Black soldier fly larvae thrive fastest in warm, humid conditions, making a covered outdoor bin sufficient for most of the growing season. A simple thermometer check twice a week is the only monitoring a larvae bin realistically requires once established. Worm bin moisture content matters more than almost any other variable. Too wet drowns worms. Too dry stresses the colony. A properly moist bin feels like a wrung-out sponge, which is the simple test most experienced worm farmers rely on daily. Aquaponics water quality testing with basic strips costs under $15 and catches problems before they affect fish or plant health. A backup air pump kept on hand prevents the single point of failure that has ended more than one beginner aquaponics attempt. Every one of these 7 systems benefits from starting small and documenting results before scaling to a larger operation. A notebook tracking weekly output, costs, and observations becomes the single most valuable tool across all 7 systems combined. Farmers markets remain the most accessible sales channel for nearly every product on this list, from quail eggs to worm castings. Building relationships with 2 or 3 regular customers at a market stall often generates more reliable income than one-time sales. Online marketplaces and local classifieds extend reach beyond the farmer's market for products like worm castings and nucleus colonies. A simple website or social media page showcasing weekly harvests builds an audience of buyers before any product is even ready. Restaurant relationships built slowly, one sample delivery at a time, often become the most stable and highest-paying sales channel available. A chef who commits to a standing weekly order removes the uncertainty that makes market-only sales feel unpredictable month to month. Direct-to-consumer sales, whether eggs, meat, or castings, consistently outperform selling through any middleman or wholesale buyer. Cutting out the middleman is the single biggest lever available to any of these 7 systems for improving overall margin. A farmer selling quail eggs at $6 a dozen direct nets far more per hour of labor than one selling wholesale at half that price. That direct relationship also builds the kind of loyal customer base that survives market saturation better than commodity pricing ever could. Every animal on this list was chosen specifically because it scales down to fit whatever space a beginner actually has available. None of these 7 require the multi-acre pasture, fencing, and feed infrastructure that goats or cattle demand from day one. That accessibility is exactly why they represent a faster, lower-risk path to real farm income than the goat-first advice most people hear. A homesteader stacking 3 or 4 of these systems over 2 years typically clears more net income than a small goat dairy operation. With a fraction of the fencing, feed, and veterinary costs that goats require to maintain even a modest breeding herd. The math on small livestock consistently favors animals chosen for margin and space efficiency over animals chosen for tradition. Goats aren't a bad animal. They're simply the wrong first choice for someone optimizing for income on limited land and budget. Every one of these 7 systems can be built, tested, and scaled using materials and space most small property owners already have. That low barrier to entry is the entire point. Real income does not require acreage. It requires the right animal in the right sequence. Pick one system this week, run it for a full season, and let the results decide what gets added next. That sequence, one proven system at a time, is how every real income-producing small farm on this list actually got built. A beginner overwhelmed by choice can default to Quail simply because it has the fastest path from purchase to first dollar earned. That first small win, even just a few dozen eggs sold at a market table, builds the confidence needed to add the next system. Confidence built from one successful system transfers directly into the patience required to master the next one properly. 3 years of stacking these 7 systems, one at a time, produces a small farm that looks nothing like where it started. But the process never felt like one big risky bet. It felt like 7 small, manageable decisions made one at a time. That is the actual lesson underneath every number in this video, more than any single animal's individual profit figure. Small, stacked, and diversified beats big, singular, and goat-shaped every single time on land of any size. The land was never the limiting factor in any of this. The assumption that goats were the obvious starting point always was. 7 animals, 7 income streams, and a small farm that pays instead of one, that quietly costs money every single month. A quail rack, a rabbit hutch, a single beehive. None of these require a mortgage-sized investment or a truck payment to get running. Compare that entry cost to a single dairy goat, which alone can run $200 to $500 before fencing, shelter, or feed ever get factored in. 2 goats minimum, since they're herd animals, doubles that entry cost before a single ounce of milk or income arrives. Fencing capable of actually containing a goat runs into real money fast, often exceeding what all 7 systems combined require to start. That fencing and shelter cost is exactly why so many first-time goat owners give up within the first 18 months of trying. Every one of the 7 animals on this list can be tested, adjusted, and scaled without that same upfront capital risk. A failed quail attempt costs under $150 in lessons learned. A failed goat attempt often costs $1,000 or more. That difference in downside risk is reason enough to start with the smaller, faster, cheaper systems before ever considering larger livestock. None of this means goats have no place on a homestead. It means they're rarely the right first animal for building real income. Save the goats for later, once quail, rabbits, bees, or worms have already proven the land, and the farmer can both produce reliably. By that point, the fencing, the feed budget, and the experience needed to make goats actually profitable will already be in place. That sequencing, small and fast first, large and slow later, is the entire strategic difference this video is built around. 7 animals, ranked by speed to income, space efficiency, and margin. None of them wearing horns or needing a barn. That's the case for rethinking the very first animal purchase on any small farm serious about actually making money. Pick the one that fits your space and budget today, and let the results over one full season tell you what comes next.